Hi everybody, welcome back to In Search for Truth. Today we're taking a quick moment to do a response video to some it seems like there's a dilemma out there in the way people are trying to analyze or figure out the 7 Laws of Noah. And one in particular happens to be Apologeticman, I believe is his name. He's been doing like his own little study of the 7 laws, trying to see if they're in the in the Bible or not, or whatever. And one of them in particular that we're going to touch on today is the eating the limb of a living animal law. And hopefully what we want to do is shed light on why, one, he's misunderstanding it, and two, how it should be understood. So without further ado, Jack, if you would like to introduce your thoughts for the night.
Okay. Well, first what I thought was that we'd actually run a little short clip of Apologeticman, and then we'll respond to it.
Okay, sounds good. All right, let's watch and see.
Okay.
This is the final video on the further study of the Noahides for now anyway. There may be more later. But this is the final one for now. And we've gone through and we've shown what the Noahide laws are, and we've compared all except for the last two to Scripture. Okay, so number 6, the dietary law: do not eat flesh taken from an animal while it is still alive. Now this is easy to go to because it's pretty well, it's pretty out there. Let's see. Okay, so Genesis chapter 9 verse 4. But you must not eat meat that has its life blood still in it. And for your life blood I will surely demand an accounting. I will demand an accounting from every animal, and from each man too I will demand an accounting for the life of his fellow man. Okay. Now, what is the commandment? What is the number 6 dietary law? What does it say? Do not eat the flesh taken from an animal while it's still alive. Now, that's not what this says at all. This says, do not eat animal flesh that still has its blood in it. In other words, you're supposed to drain the blood from the animal before you kill it. I mean, when you're killing it. Not before you kill it, obviously. That would be kind of stupid. And so, even now, this kind of thing is mirrored, but it doesn't say what the Noahide law says it says. It doesn't say do not eat flesh taken from an animal while it's still alive. What it says is that do not eat flesh with the blood still in it. That could be an already dead animal that hasn't been drained and hasn't been slaughtered properly. What the whole point of that would be to me is to not eat blood. Do not eat blood. And I believe that that's mirrored even in the New Testament. I believe Paul says something effective: do not eat meat with blood in it. So,
Okay. It's quite apparent, number one, that he has a little problem trying to understand the scriptural text. Somebody apparently has written to him and has told him, these laws, and his response to him has always been a negative. And somebody writes to him and tells him that there is this prohibition against eating the limb of a living animal, and that this prohibition is found in Genesis 9:4. And he basically reads the text, and I don't know exactly what translation he's using, but apparently it's not a very good one. But in his reading, he actually runs verse 4 and verse 5 together, which one shouldn't do because you want to keep everything contextually sound. If you want to do something, you should have read verse 3 and 4, because that would be the context of what's actually been said.
Right.
Again, I looked at all the translations that I have available, and I have plenty of them, but I didn't seem to find exactly the one that he was using.
Maybe he can let us know if he sees this in response to it.
Exactly. Maybe he can let us know what translation he's using. But I'm going to read a few translations. I'll read one that most Christians carry, and that's the KJV. And then I'll also refer, by the way, to the New American Standard, which you find a lot of people using today also. They just happen to be translated from different Greek texts, so but the Hebrew supposedly is to be the same, even though the translations are a little bit different. And then we actually just want to read the Hebrew text, and then we'll actually look at the Living Torah, which is a translation by Rabbi Ari Kaplan of blessed memory, and look at how he translates this text also. But it's really about the prohibition against the eating of a limb of a living animal, okay? Which, when an Apologeticman reads this text, he says, well, this seems to be kind of far out, and he goes into the situation, he thinks, well, it's really saying don't eat its blood, okay? So let's look at the text. So, first of all, we're going to take the old King James, which everybody pretty much uses, right? A lot of people use. I mean, it's a pretty good text in some places it isn't, you know. So let's just read verses 9, and we'll read verse 4, but we'll go back later and read verse 3 with verse 4.
Okay.
Okay? Because verse 4 actually starts out but, right? So but's a conjunction, which leads me to believe that there's something that has to be read first,
right,
because this is in relationship to that,
right?
Right? The verse 4 says, but flesh with the life thereof, which is the blood thereof, shall you not eat.
Okay. So right there we get the actual prohibition.
Yes.
It's telling us what we cannot eat.
Yes.
Okay. And then it gives us a little bit more detail.
Yes.
And then it says that's what we cannot eat.
Yes.
All right. So.
And let us put this in. This is after the flood. Excuse me. Remember that this is God's permission slip to humanity after the flood.
Right. Right.
You know, God previously gave a permission slip prior to the flood to Adam and all those descendants up to Noah, and the permission slip is actually quoted in verse 3 of the same chapter, right? Because he says, every moving thing that liveth shall be meat for you, even as the green herb which I have given you all things. Now this goes back to the Garden of Eden, to the earlier chapter, when human beings were basically forbidden from eating animals or animal flesh.
Because they were told what they could eat, which was mainly just the vegetation.
Exactly. And we want to actually kind of get into the philosophical idea why this was so, right? But now we have a new permission after the flood, but this permission slip is in the same line as the previous permission slip, right?
Correct.
So that's why we get the quotation from the earlier text. Every moving thing that liveth shall be meat for you, right? Even as the green herb have I given you all things. So we go back to the Garden of Eden and we look at what man was first given. He was given all the green herbs that had seed bearing within it, and they were given all the fruit that had the seed within the fruit, right?
Right.
Okay? He says, but now we have an exception here. I've given you everything, right?
Right.
Everything that moves, I've given it to you for food. But there's a but, right? Within God's permission slip, there is
a restriction.
A restriction. Okay, so what's the restriction?
Correct.
Here's the restriction. But flesh, right? Sar.
Mm-hmm.
Flesh. In Hebrew the word is just sar, it's flesh. But flesh with the life, and this is the word nephesh,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Which we translate life so often, right? Mm-hmm. In fact, when God creates man, He breathes the breath of life into man. Man becomes a living nephesh, life, right? It's really talking about life. He says, but flesh with the life thereof, which is the blood thereof, shall you not eat.
Right. So when it brings in this issue of the blood, we see what? That is bringing it in what context?
Okay, and the context is qualifying